Another episode of the Women Writing Intentionally show with Jenny Alberti and Tracey Rampling Brown. Join us as we talk all things writing and publishing, starting with insider secrets and talking about our own author journeys. We are committed to providing a safe platform for women to share their stories, their knowledge, and their truth without fear of judgment. By coming together in a genuine spirit of collaboration, we provide opportunities for growth, healing, and transformation that benefit all women, authors, and readers alike. Our vision is to help our authors build aligned legacies and portfolios that support their mission as women, human beings, and business owners. So thanks for being here with us again this week. We are talking today about press, media, and publicity. So I hope you guys are all excited. If you are catching us live and you've got any questions, do feel free, just drop them in the chat and we will answer those when we have a chance. So Jenny, you've had some amazing publicity wins lately. Would you like to tell us a little bit about them?
Yes, I would. So my 2 articles that were in Authority magazine. Yes, that. This was my favorite of the 2, but I had the amazing pleasure of having one of my authors. This is what she does. And her name is Christina Sims. And she essentially offered to she just messaged me right now. That's funny. She helped us out in terms of, doing these things that we don't really know what to do. Like, how do we find PR? Like, what is right for us? What articles are right for us? And that whole process of actually, submitting your application and then getting it approved and pushing it through and getting it published. For me, I didn't pursue any of the stuff before simply because I didn't know what to do. And it all seemed like another thing that I had to learn. And frankly, I didn't think also that I was at that point yet, like where this was something that was important for me to do, or that I had enough to say about whatever people were looking for, whatever topics. And the reality of that, once I kind of dove into this and with Christina's help, was really there's so much to talk about out there. And there is plenty of opportunity for everybody based off of, past experiences or, her zone of genius or whatever it is. And these 2 articles really Christina picked, but they really spoke to me. So this process was incredible because Christina's a PR expert and she asked a series of questions to really get to know me and to get to know the other authors that pursued this as well. And it was just an easy process being able to say, hey, here's what I've done, here's what I know, here's what I like to talk about. And then she went out and she found the appropriate opportunities. And then once those opportunities, were given to us, then we just wrote, and the questions were already there for us. So we were prepared to write the article. And it was just a seamless process because she's incredible, by the way, Christina Sims. She pushed through these pieces so that they came out before the launch of the book. So, that's kind of how this came about. And I didn't pursue it on my own. I had, an amazing PR expert that went ahead and did those things that I thought were too much for me, like too much, not knowing what to do. And she handled it all. So, yeah.
Yeah. And this is the thing. I mean, a lot of these press opportunities. So Jenny's first article was about the 5 things you need to know to become a great author. And as you can see, Jenny certainly had a lot to say, right? Like this is all of the questions. So,
I did. I having a lot to say. Yes.
and opportunities like this in some of these publications where you can be featured are you can pitch yourself. So you don't necessarily have to work with a PR person to do that. There are definitely ways you can go and find these opportunities on your own, and you submit your pitch and you let them know why you would be a really good person to interview for whatever the article is about. But you can, as Jenny has just explained, work with a PR expert, and they will help you to curate the articles that would be best suited to showcasing your expertise. So Jenny's second article was about female disruptors and the 3 things you need to shake up your industry. And this one actually only just came out, I think, on Friday. So really, really, really recent. And what is amazing about this is that, particularly and if you really want to check out these articles, if you are part of our group, the Women Writing Intentionally Collective, the links to the articles are posted in there. You can also, if you're following me on Facebook, the links are on Facebook as well, and you can probably find them on Jenny's profile too. Because they're really great articles. And naturally, even in the Disruptor one, Jenny is talking about how she is shaking up the publishing industry and how with the Women Writing Intentionally Collective, we are looking to really help bring about change for women writers and women who work with women writers. So there are lots of ways that you can tailor these articles to showcase your expertise. Now, as a writer, you can see that there are articles that you can do about the 5 things you need to know to be a great author or things like that. So you can talk about your writing journey. So whether you are a new author, whether you are a novelist, whether you are a seasoned author, whether you're a publisher, there are opportunities for you to go out there and position yourself as a writer or as an author. There are also opportunities for you to then look more specifically into your own niche and expertise. So Authority Magazine is a great example because I'm pretty sure that they've got something like 239 active series of articles that they are currently pursuing at any one time. So whether you are looking for something that's going to be talking about finance, whether you're going to be looking at something that talks about health and wellness, whether you're going to be talking about something to do with women in business, whether you are looking at talking about entrepreneurship or any of those things, there is an opportunity to try and find an article that is perfect to showcase your expertise. Now, Authority Magazine is not the only publication out there that does features like that. There are plenty of people that also get features in places like Forbes and Stylist and other magazines out there. But it's all about knowing where and how you can make those connections or how you can pitch yourself. And it is a part of the mix that we quite often overlook, because if we don't know where to start, it seems really hard and overwhelming. But I would just like to say, as somebody who did, I actually recently pitched myself for an article similar to the ones Jenny has been in. It's a slightly different series. And I just went in and went onto the application form and filled it out and was like, this is what my perspective on this topic would be. Like, this is the series I'm interested in. This is the topic that I want to talk about. This is what I'm going to bring to the table. And then they emailed me back and they're like, yeah, we would love to interview you. So you can absolutely go and put yourself out there, but it does require a little bit of preparation. So as Jenny was just saying, her PR girl, Christina, had given her a list of questions and given her authors a list of questions so that they could really dive deep. And one of the things you can do to prepare for things like that is to have a look at existing articles in that series and see what the questions are and actually practice writing those answers for yourself, even before you are accepted for a pitch. Because if nothing else, and we touched on this last week when we were talking about using things like journal prompts and stuff to help create your chapter, it's the same kind of process. Because the kinds of questions that they ask, and I'll let Jenny share in a second, like I'm pretty sure there were a couple of questions that were actually very similar between the two articles, weren't there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, being able to kind of see what other people, like the directions that other people have gone, you know, with Quiet and Badass coming out, I would compare to past articles if someone else had something that was upcoming, how they weaved that into their answers and stuff. So I did definitely look through articles that were similar to see, like, am I going in the right direction with these answers? 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just makes your job easier as a writer. Now, obviously, because we are talking, the show is called Women Writing Intentionally, we are generally speaking all writers. So this concept of the written word is not a foreign concept to us. And really, writing an article or a feature is something that should be easily added to our repertoire because we already have the skills. It's not like we are asking people from unrelated industries to writing at all to suddenly write a long essay about why they're amazing and how they're disrupting the industry or how they're to be a great author or whatever the topic is. So every single one of you watching or listening to this already has the skills if you're a writer, because if you write, this is just another form of writing. The other thing that I think is relevant to mention here is that while there are certainly feature opportunities like the articles that Jenny has been really lucky to recently have had done, and they're brilliant also for things like if you want to get verified on a social media channel and get the little magical blue tick, press opportunities like those help to build your portfolio that you can then use to verify that you are who you are, as far as the global world and the Insta influencers and the blue tick committees and things like that are concerned. So free press and publicity is actually like a really important element in the mix. But there are also opportunities for you to be featured in magazines and online magazines as a contributing writer. So again, because you guys are all women who write intentionally, this is another opportunity for you to use your words powerfully in ways that are very similar. If you blog and write long form content, it's an opportunity for you to create articles and actually submit them. So you might look at publications, for example, like Thrive Global or like Elephant Journal or Mind Body Green or Refinery 29 or whichever articles, whichever online magazines, Medium, wherever that you love to read, that you think your audience might be hanging out and reading, is a really great place to actually go and have a look. And if you go to websites like medium.com or Thrive Global, they actually have a little link on there that says write for us or become a contributor. And you can actually click through and have a look and see what all of their criteria are that you need to meet. And sometimes it's that the articles need to be a minimum of a certain word count. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it needs to be 100% original content, which means that the article cannot have been published on your blog before, or it can't have been published as an article on LinkedIn or anything like that. And other times they don't really mind. It's okay if it's syndicated content. But why would you do that? Why would you be a contributing writer for an online publication or even a written publication if you could have a blog and have them go to your website? Well, the answer to that is because when you are turning up as a contributing writer on somebody else's platform, you get to leverage their audience. And so a few weeks back, Jenny and I were talking about closing the leverage gap and things like that. And this is really an opportunity for you to leverage other people's audiences to draw people to your website, to your book, to your profile, wherever it is, your mailing list, whatever, because what you're sharing about your expertise or your perspective or your opinions, you have the opportunity sometimes twice. You may have it, some places will let you either have links in the article, so you might be able to say something like, you'll notice Jenny and I do it all the time, like grab a free copy of our powerful prompts and the website. And you might be able to include a link like that at the bottom of your article so that people can then, if they like what you have to say, they can click through and download your freebie off your website. Some publications don't like you to have call to actions, but you always have a bio as an author where you get, or as a contributing writer, where you get to say, you know, Tracey is an international best-selling author, lunar business strategist, CEO of Gemini Moon Press, and founder of the Women Writing Intentionally Collective. You can follow her on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn or something, and it will have room for the social links, or sometimes they can be longer than that. And because you can put your social links in, again, it gives people who read your article and read your words an opportunity to feel like they're connecting with you and then go and follow you on other platforms or connect with your content in other ways, or click through to your profile on that particular platform and see what other articles you've written and start to get to know you and then want to reach out.
So Tracey,
yeah,
I just wanted to add, because in the two opportunities that I had in those articles, we also were able to, if we chose to, create a video, and they would embed the video directly into the article as well. I just chose not to. But that's another way too, to, you can talk about yourself and connect. They can read your words, but also they could connect with whatever you say in the video, which, it really is an incredible opportunity. I just didn't do it.
Yeah. And I mean, different things suit different people. And we've talked a little bit about aligned visibility before and doing what it is that aligns to you as an author. So if you like to show up on video, then by all means, go and summarize your 5 things that make you a great author, or your 3 things that you're doing to disrupt your industry, or whatever the article is that you're being featured on. Go and make your video so that you can speak to the audience and connect with them. And usually you can also use that video, you upload it to YouTube or something. So it's also content on your YouTube channel to give you that, or Vimeo or something, to give you that exposure across other platforms. But then they're featuring you. And quite often with those, they'll also do roundup posts where they might have like 4 or 5 of those videos together in one post. So rather than only having your particular article, it then gets traction in other ways. But if you don't resonate with video content, you can just do the written articles like Jenny did, and it's totally okay. There's no losing, no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. And so there are definitely ways that you can get press and publicity and media without having to pay for it. There's definitely lots of free opportunities out there. There are also paid opportunities. it is entirely possible to go and pay to be featured as, you know, I get lots of spam for these on Instagram about, you know, we're looking for the top 100 life coaches summer 2020, like contact Thoughtful PR or whatever, to be featured, you know, cost supply. And they will charge you anywhere from like $300 to $3,000 or something like that to then get to have them write up a feature very similar, in fact, probably actually less information than Jenny got to share in her free one, but it will then feature in some of those other publications that might be really prestige, like Entrepreneur and Inc. and Forbes and places like that. Having said that, it is still possible to get free features in places like Forbes, in places like Entrepreneur and things like that. You don't only have to get paid press on big platforms, but it's about being savvy enough to know which platforms you want to be featured on, because it really is dependent on where your ideal readers are hanging out. You know, for me, for example, with my book Lunar Wisdom coming out next month, Forbes probably isn't the place where my ideal clients are hanging out. So while, you know, that would be super awesome as a publisher to be featured on Forbes, the readers of my book probably aren't there. Whereas, you know, Jenny turning up as a disruptor in the industry, Forbes might be freaking amazing. So it's all about working out which outlets are aligned for you and what opportunities those platforms actually have for you to either apply to be a contributing author or for you to be featured as a person of interest, as an influential person in your industry. The other thing that we should probably also touch on just briefly before we wrap up is podcasts and speaking opportunities. Because while we've been focusing a lot on written, Jenny brings up a really good point about the video content, because there are opportunities out there, so many opportunities out there to be interviewed for podcasts or to be interviewed for video talk shows like this kind of thing, where people stream it to YouTube or where they might stream it to platforms like Roku or Amazon TV or any of those other streaming platforms that host content. Because again, leveraging other people's audiences to spread your message about whatever it is that you write about, whether you are writing about your business, whether you are a fiction writer, whether you are sharing transformational stories, whether you're writing poetry, whether you are an academic writer or a researcher. I mean, there are so many ways that you can leverage this to your benefit. I mean, there is a podcast literally for everything. And I mean, Jenny and I have both done a number of podcasts, not just this podcast, obviously. But, you know, like Jenny recently did one, I think, what was the one that you did with your friend Deb called again?
Oh, she, my God, I'm blanking.
It's something for digital nomads.
Yes. Debbie, I'm sorry. Debbie, forgive me. Oh my God, I'm the worst friend ever.
Isn't it
Oh my
Offbeat?
God.
The Offbeat track? The
Yes!
Offbeat.
Offbeat Life.
The Offbeat
The
life.
Offbeat Life. Yes. Sorry, Debbie. Love you.
And so the point that I'm making is like you can be on different podcasts. You don't have to just be, well, I'm a writer, so I can only be on writing podcasts, or I'm a moonologer and a lunar business strategist, so I can only be on woo podcasts, right? It's really about thinking of what stories do you have to share? What ways can you provide value to the podcaster's audience, but also in a way that's going to benefit you? How are you going to magnetize those clients or those listeners to you and your message so that they want to actually go into the show notes and click your links to find out more about you, so that they can go and buy your book on Amazon, so that they can follow you on Facebook and consume more of your content. And the beautiful thing, especially as a writer, and this is something that I think is really undervalued and underestimated, but Jenny touched on this last week, is that the more that we speak our message, the more it crystallizes, the stronger it becomes, and people love repetition, right? When you see politicians speak, they aren't bringing up they're not bringing up new messages every single time they stand behind a microphone. They have their talking points, they have their party platform, and they bang on about the exact same issues over and over and over and over again. And why do they do that? So that people understand, so that people get it, so that people are like, oh yeah, I resonate with that too. Whereas if you say it one time, it's only the people that were listening that one time that hears it. So not only is it really great for you to then cement that in and infuse that into every fiber of your being, but it's also brilliant because you are constantly driving home that same core messaging so that people know exactly who you are and what you stand for. And they start to feel that connection with you. And sometimes even if they've heard that story again, they're like, oh, I know this one. And they have that anticipation because they feel like they're part of this inner crowd because you've created this relationship with them. And that is the same whether you are creating video content, it is the same whether you are creating written content, it is the same whether you're creating audio content. And as a writer and as an author and as a business owner, it is so important to make sure that when you put that book out into the world, you don't just let it die and sink to the bottom of the rankings. Not because rankings specifically are like the be all and end all, but people can't buy your book if they don't know it's there. One of the best ways for people to know that you have a book is to talk about it and tell people that you have one. I'm just saying.
I just want to add what you were saying about how you want to do podcasts, you want to do, do articles. Where can you show up where your audience is, wherever they're hanging out? And I think an important piece to this is understanding that information and value in general is consumed in many different ways. So some people they are your audience, but they consume information through video, or they consume it through podcasts, or they consume it through reading, right? So for me, I quite obviously would always opt to do the articles versus showing up and doing a video podcast, right? There are some that I have done that were video podcasts. There are plenty that I have done where they are just audio. But finding what you are willing to do and to start there is kind of the first step in the whole PR thing in general. Is like, what are you willing to do first and to go do that thing? And then once you do that thing and you do that thing a couple of times, you feel more comfortable to take the next step. So for me, I actually, when I did my podcast, that was the thing that, maybe not so comfortable with, but I started with people that, I already had a relationship with, and I knew that I would feel comfortable just hanging out talking versus someone that I didn't know and I didn't have a relationship with. Maybe I didn't know what they were going to ask me, like this whole thing. But I just started doing it and got my message down. I knew what things I like to talk about. And then I could tell them here's what I like to talk about. Here are the things, how does it fit into this particular episode or this particular show? But the most important thing is understanding that even if we aren't comfortable with doing all these things, or even if we think that maybe they're not important, which I'm guilty of that in the beginning, I just didn't think that any of this was important to do because there wasn't an immediate dollar sign attached to my efforts. I didn't think that this was important. And then, 4 years into owning my business, I still didn't have any of these things where I was building an audience or building authority behind me because I was always trying to sell something. Anyways, so it is important because you want to get to your audience in the different ways that they consume the information. So starting with what you're comfortable first and then expanding from there. But maybe whoever is listening is like, I don't care, I'll do whatever. I just haven't done it because I didn't think it was important. It's extremely important. Story to piggyback this is one of the authors in Quiet and Badass, Beth. She, for the first time, she uploaded a presentation. She started a YouTube channel. And she's like, I'm going to put my presentation up on YouTube and we'll see what happens. Because normally she's just kind of like on Facebook, right? And Beth got a client from it right away. And I was like, this is just proof that not only do people consume content in different mediums, but they also consume it on different channels. So the starting point is important, but then just kind of easing into expanding from there in different mediums, on different channels. And she reaped the benefits pretty quickly. It was like a week, I think, and she got a new client from it. So anyways,
I love that. That's so exciting. But I love that you're pointing that out, that it isn't just always the platforms that we're comfortable with. It's then also knowing where your ideal clients are hanging out and expanding your comfort zone. But
yeah.
Going back to what you said last week about taking those incremental steps.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to start by doing all of the things, right? Admittedly, if you're a multi-potentialite, the chances are that you might do all of the things because you can't help yourself. Ask me how I know. But for the average person, we pick one thing, we focus on that first, you work out how comfortable you are with it, you build a little bit of confidence and direction and authority in it, and then you expand out from there. And so if you do feel more confident on video, start with looking for video speaking opportunities. If you are more confident, even just doing audio, there are other platforms, even like Clubhouse is an amazing opportunity to go and speak and participate, whether you are choosing to run your own rooms, whether you are stepping up as a speaker, either as a guest speaker or moderator in somebody else's rooms, or whether you just want to raise your hand on stage and contribute to the conversation. So there are lots of ways that you can choose to step up and create content and put it out there. But I really just want to bring this back into the fact that as writers, this is part of creating your author platform. So it's not just about creating your business platform to just promote your products or your services. This is about also creating your author platform and your authority as a writer and as an expert in your field. And that your field may be what your business is, but you also are looking at your personality and who you are as a writer as well. So not just as an entrepreneur, but also as a writer. And it does take a slightly different approach. And you just really need to think about the kinds of questions that come with that, or the kinds of things that you want to portray. Because it is a slightly different strategy, very similar methods, but it, like Jenny said, she spent 4 years thinking it wasn't important. And now here she is 4 years later being seen by the whole world as an influential female disruptor in the publishing industry. So I'm just saying that this is the way that you can position yourself to be seen by however many people are hanging out on Medium, reading this series, who are also reading articles about female disruptors in a variety of different industries. Obviously, it's not all about publishers. But this puts you in a category where you're basically amongst the who's who, right? The who's who of female disruptors, or the who's who of great authors, right? 5 things you know to become a great author. This kind of thing obviously positions Jenny as a great author. And so for you, if you were looking for, the 5 secrets that every yoga teacher needs to know, or the 5 secrets that you need to work in banking and finance, that's going to position you as an expert in that field as well, as a mover and shaker, as a person of interest, as somebody worth getting to know, as somebody who is a thought leader and whose words matter, whose words count. And like I said, obviously, if you're a fiction author, that article about being a great author would be fabulous if you're a fiction author as well, because you could talk about character development. You could talk about your writing process. Like, do you write in snippets? Do you write in a linear format? Do you create your whole framework and do all of your world building first and then come to the storylines? Or do you just write the storylines and you fill in the details later? Like, it gives you that opportunity to really dive deep into how your process works, because that is your secret sauce and that is what makes you special. Okay, so hopefully you guys got some amazing tips from that and can see that there's definitely value in it. Just to recap, we covered actually 4 different ways that you can pursue press, media, and publicity. The first one was through being featured in free press, free publicity, unpaid publicity, by getting featured in articles. And if you have any questions about that, if you would like to find out more about how we've done it, how you can do those things, please come and join us in the Women Writing Intentionally Collective, which is Jenny's and my Facebook group, where we are curating some incredible women writers and women in the publishing industry, from authors to editors to publishers to illustrators, graphic designers, and retailers, and so much more. So if you have written or you support women who write, we would love to have you come and join us and contribute to the conversation, because we would love to hear your perspectives on everything we've shared, or if you've got any questions about how we've done this or where you might want to go and look for resources. So first one is through features. The second one is by becoming a contributing writer to some of those same kinds of publications, where you are the one who chooses the story and chooses the pitch and chooses the angle. And no, it won't necessarily be part of a series about female disruptors, but you might actually create your own series. So if you were like me, for example, and worked with the moon, I might create a series of 13 different articles that might talk about the 13 moons of the year, or the 12 zodiac, the moon through the 12 zodiac signs through the year. And that would give me enough content to write 1 article a month for a whole year. You might want to talk about your program or your signature source, or if you're a fiction author, you might want to talk about some of the process with that, or like the 5 things you need to know to become a great fiction author, or the 5 things you need to know to write like science fiction fantasy for young adult readers, or something like that. The 5 things you need to know about writing poetry that doesn't sound like a 5-year-old wrote it. I don't know. So you then get to actually curate those stories and contribute to a publication or multiple publications if you want to be able to syndicate your message wider and leverage multiple audiences. You can then also choose to pursue speaking opportunities, and speaking opportunities can be done. There are lots that we didn't actually cover today, and we'll have to do another episode sometime about paid speaking gigs and unpaid speaking gigs and summits and things like TEDx talks and things like that. But you can seek out like video podcasts, for example, or speaking opportunities, guest expert spots in Facebook groups, for example. Those are also really great ways to get your message out there, to talk about your new book, your launch date, and whatever it is that you want to talk about to help build your platform. And then the final one was podcasts. So there are lots and lots of different ways and things that you can do to really help to build your author platform, to get featured, because one of the things is when you're featured by somebody else, they're also doing the work to promote you too. Yes, you're going to post it on your social feeds, and that's going to be super fun. But also the chances are, like if you're on a podcast, when that podcast episode drops, the podcaster is going to be like, hey guys, I've got a new episode on my podcast today, and I've interviewed Jenny Alberti to talk about female disruptors in the publishing industry, or whatever it is. And so then it will go out to their audience. You can then put it out to your audience. And so it's really helping to widen your circle and expose you to more people. And again, that's why it's really important to be intentional about the message that you're sharing and where you're sharing it and who you're sharing it with. Because if you are not curating those angles, if you are just taking any podcast that you could apply for, even if it's only tangentially related to what you do, there is always the risk that you are basically just wasting your time. Because if the people who listen to that podcast aren't really interested in what you're selling, if they're not interested in the things that you're doing, then you aren't really going to be able to leverage that viewership effectively to draw them into your world. So yes, it might be really super fun that your sister's best friend's mom's uncle has a podcast about fishing, but that might not actually be the right podcast for you. I mean, it's nice that you know someone with a podcast. Probably it's not really a good fit unless you're into fishing, and maybe then it is. So yes, being intentional, because as you know, we're all about the intention, aren't we, Jenny?
I know I am.
I mean, it's kind of in the name, guys, women writing intentionally.
Kind of there.
So, Jenny, do you have any final thoughts you want to add before we tell them what we're going to be covering next week?
Well, I think that we should mention that a great opportunity would be to reach out to us about coming on the show.
Yeah.
Because that is a great place for people to start if they are in our world. They possibly know us, and this might be a good place. Going back to kind of what I was saying, if you are looking to start, getting more and more seen, what I did was I started with people that I was familiar with. And we haven't started interviewing people yet, but we will. So just saying, you should probably reach out to us if you want to start talking. And yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Yes, I love it. Jenny and I have been talking about this ever since we decided that we were going to start running a weekly talk show. And we really would love to be interviewing other people in the publishing industry who are doing the behind the scenes work like we are. But then we'd also really love to interview authors as well and talk about your books and what they're about and what your inspirations were, and why you think that message is really important to be shared in the world. So if you are watching and you are a woman writer or somebody who works in the publishing industry, reach out to us, DM us, come and join us in our community, which you can see the link just below, and slide into our inboxes and let us know that you would be really keen to come on the show. I would also love to give you a little bit of a hint about what we're going to be talking about next week, because Jenny has her launch of Quiet and Badass this Friday. So next Monday, we are going to be sharing a behind the scenes, behind the curtain sneak peek at what it takes to put together a book launch. Are you excited, Jenny? Because I know I am.
I am. I'm so excited. I'm really trying to actually contain my excitement for the 17 other women that are going to become published authors on Friday, and then be able to pay that forward and help other people understand the process and what it would take for them, and so that they can have this same level of excitement that myself and my gorgeous authors are feeling right now. So yes, I'm excited.
Yeah, so if you are keen to know more about Jenny's book launch, do make sure that you are following Jenny on social media, so that you can get a notification to buy the book on Friday when it releases on Amazon. It will be available at a special launch price of 99 cents for the Kindle version. So we would absolutely love your support to help all of the authors get the recognition that they deserve, but also so that you can be inspired by 18 incredible, quietly badass, introverted women who are absolutely slaying it in the business world. So if you would like to find out more about that, please do make sure that you are following Jenny or come and join our community.
Yes.
Okay, beauties. Thank you so much for joining us again for another week of the Women Writing Intentionally show. We look so forward to these calls on Mondays, and we will be back again next week.